Hey all, it's been a while since I made a video, but I thought as the 2021 AP exams are coming upon us, I thought I would do a video explaining the digital versus the in-paper formats. Now, originally I kind of was going to make a video that talked about the differences because your school was going to decide which exam format you get. But I actually I'm finding out a lot of schools are giving choices to their students about whether they should take the in-person or the online, or you have some choices in terms of that. And I wanted to go over sort of what are the trade-offs between the two exams, just so you're really familiar with the exam format and what to expect. There are clear trade-offs between the two, so don't make your decision purely based on the fact that the digital exams will be later. So I kind of want to give you an overview. So to recap, what's happening is there are three exam administrations that are AP exam administrations being offered this year. One's like kind of early May, one's kind of end of May, one kind of early June. Those are the three. And your school or your test, wherever you're taking the test, is deciding how they're going to administer that. They have to choose that. And they should have made that choice already at this point. Now, schools have the option of giving a couple of different choices in terms of the AP's exams. And I know for me, I'm finding some of my students had the early exams, but a lot of them are between the second or the third administration. Now, for the subjects that I cover, calculus, physics, statistics, those AP exams are either always all on paper for the first two administrations, or they're done digitally on the third exam administration. The second administration is there. It's like some AP exams can be done in person. Some of them are done digitally. But for the AP exams I'm talking about today, for administration 1 and 2, they're always done in person, paper and pencil, traditional. Now, there's not a lot to be said about the traditional format. Most people generally know what the format is, or you can look up very easily what the format of those exams are and the past free responses and the multiple choices. None of that has really changed this year for those exams, except for AP Physics 1, which I'll talk about a little bit at the end. The digital exam is a little bit different this year, and if you compare it to last year, I think the digital exam is going to be much better than it was last year. Last year, COVID kind of rushed upon the College Board. They didn't really have a good plan for how they were going to administer the AP exams. There was a lot of issues with the uploading, the fact that the exam was so short, 45 minutes as opposed to a full exam. I think it's good that this year you're having a full AP exam. It's giving you more opportunity to demonstrate your skills. When you have a very short exam, there's a lot of randomness in the sense that maybe you do very well or maybe you do very poorly, but it's kind of luck of the draw whether you did well in that question. Whereas over a longer test, you have more chances to demonstrate what you do know, and that will serve you better for students who are prepared. You don't want a luck of the draw question to sort of affect your results. So this year, I'm hopeful that the digital exam is going to work out pretty well. But there are some important trade-offs that you're going to want to consider. So let's talk first a bit about what the digital exam is going to look like. So you're going to have the same two sections, multiple choice, and then a free response questions. We'll get into details for a lot of them. But one of the big things about the multiple choice that I want to highlight is you cannot go back on a question. So there's no skipping. There's no coming back to a harder question later. Like on the in-paper exam, when you do the multiple choices, you can jump around. You can go back and double check your answers. You cannot do that on the digital exam. Once you answer a question and you move on, you cannot go back to that question. If you skip that question, you cannot go back and answer that question. You have to answer that question in front of you and give your best answer at that time and then move on to the next question. I think that's a little bit challenging from a time management point of view because when I was taking exams, I would sometimes be like, ooh, this looks like a hard one. I want to come back and do that. On the digital exam, you cannot do that. You must answer the question that is given in front of you. Once you move on, no going back. That's a pretty big one in terms of time management, in my opinion. It's a big drawback. I get why they're doing it for exam security. They don't want people to pass around questions and basically cheat on the exam. So they're saying once you see it and you move on, you have to move on, and there's no looking back. They'll give you a warning. It looks like once you try to move on to the next question, as you can see here in their slide demos. But yeah, You're just going to have to move on at that point. Same with the free response questions. Free response questions are going to have the same scenario. You are allowed to jump between. So free response questions usually have multiple parts. So you are allowed to jump between the parts of a question, but once you answer that entire free response question, you cannot go back to that question. Okay? So there's no, again, from a time management point of view, if it looks like a very hard question, you just have to put your time into it, move on, do your best, and see if the last question happens to be easy, you have extra time. That is unfortunate. You cannot go back to a previous question and look at it or modify your answer in any way. So those are the big differences, I would say, in the exam. The other thing to keep in mind is on the free response questions, you have to submit your answer completely in the application. There is no handwritten work, taking pictures and uploading it. That was kind of a mess. Instead, when you run this test, it's a standalone app. And in the app and in the program, you need to put all the equations, all the expressions, all your work in there. No handwriting, all typed in. Now, for some people, so April 8th, they said that you're going to have a demo of this. And I'm going to come out with a little bit video later, April 8th, maybe describing maybe my kind of view of what the app looks like, if I'm able to run it. I'm not sure, since I'm not a student, if I'm able to demo it. But if I can demo it, I'm going to come back and show what it looks like. But April 8th is when they said they're going to have that out to demo. I suggest you practice that if you're taking a digital exam. Make sure you're very familiar with how you're supposed to enter things in, what are the limitations, and how you're going to show a lot of your work. Now, my understanding is all of the exam formats are going to be in a way that is geared towards this kind of data entry, this kind of entry system. So you're not going to be able to sketch graphs or ask to plot things, or even maybe draw free body diagrams for physics, because you're limited by this interface and typing in. So that means they're going to gear the questions a little bit different than what you may be used to seeing on the paper or the past exam format questions. So that's something to keep in mind. What I want to look at next is the individual exams. How do they differ specifically, and talk about specific differences. This is kind of like just the general difference between the digital and the in-paper exam. So let's start with calculus. So here's the detailed exam information for calculus. Now, what they're saying here is that the digital version and the in-paper version will be the same format. Same number of multiple choice questions, same number of free response questions, although the free response questions will be geared more to where it is easier for you to type in the answer through the digital app, as we just discussed. This is an important update, I would say. The normal calculus exam, A, B, and BC, both have calculator and non-calculator portions, and the non-calculator portion is usually a larger fraction of the exam. However, for the digital exam, you can always use a calculator the entire time. So it will be permissible to have a calculator the entire time. I think they did this because it's really impossible to police people and be like, well, they're not watching you while you take the test, so there's no way to stop people from using a calculator. So you will get to use your standard graphing calculator on all the questions, which can be a huge boon if you're kind of weak at unit circle, your trigonometry, or just the arithmetic. This means that you can use a calculator to sort of shore up some of that areas for you. So be very, if you're going to do this, be very familiar with the way the calculator format works, or how to use your calculator to do most of those things. The physics exams are kind of interesting. The physics exam, AP Physics 1 and 2, the exam formats are different. The paper exam is the traditional format. The digital exam will have more multiple choice questions and fewer free response questions. So specifically, you will, instead of having 5 free response questions, you will only have 2 free response questions. You have 45 minutes to answer them. And they are just like last year's free response questions, if you know anything about the last year digital AP exams, is 1 qualitative quantitative transition and 1 short answer paragraph argument question. You should look at some of the videos last year where I kind of describe what those questions are, but Worthy of note is there is no experimental design question, and then the other questions are usually these short answer questions, which they will not be included, and that rounds out the 5 questions for AP Physics 1 and then 4 questions for AP Physics 2. So no experimental design questions, more multiple choice questions. So multiple choice is kind of like a strength for you in physics. Maybe the digital exam is going to work a little bit better in your favor in that sense. In physics, you always get to use a calculator, so it has none of those issues, none of those trade-offs as the calculus exam. Like I said, normal questions, but you won't be able to, because of the limitations of the digital app, you won't be asked to draw anything, sketch graphs, or probably do that many complicated derivations. A lot of these qualitative transition, or QQT in paragraph argument, it tends to be more writing and explanatory, a little bit of computations and equations also, but more writing than not, and that's why they kind of select those two styles of questions, because they tend to be more writing and a little bit and more conceptual and a little bit less computational. Okay, the last exam I want to look. Sorry for physics. Sorry, I didn't roll. Physics C is very interesting. There are no free response questions this year for Physics C. It is all multiple choice. No free response questions. So there will be 2 multiple choice sections. 35 questions each section, pure multiple choice. That's it. That's all you're done for the exam for that one. I'm not sure why they dropped I think the free response is a little more complicated, I would say, in Physics C. So I guess that's why they chose not to. But for whatever reason, it's all multiple choice for that one. The last one I want to look at is statistics, AP Statistics. Pretty similar, except on the multiple choice is the same. The free has fewer free response questions. Only 4 free response questions instead of the traditional 6 free response questions that you would have on the in-person on-paper exam. And that's pretty much it. Statistics tends to be a lot of already paragraph written type stuff. Now, I don't expect the exam format to be significantly different. Again, you can't plot things if you're asked to, or circle things on scatter plots, but there's other ways that they can have you answer those kinds of questions if necessary. So I would say that is kind of the full summary of what I wanted to say about like the comparison between the digital and the in-person exams. If your school only makes you do one, I am gonna talk about maybe specific video strategy. I'm gonna make videos on specific strategies for each exam on the digital exam, on what you might want to think about, on how to manage the fact that you can't go back, and how to use the calculator for the calculus. So look for those videos in the coming weeks. I'll also but if you do have a choice and you're still weighing a choice between the two, hopefully this video kind of helps explain some of the trade-offs or think about it. Honestly, if you're prepared, you can take either exam format. Just try to, some people are going to have different strengths and areas. And of course, your COVID risk, I can't weigh that for you. So everyone has to make their own individual choice about which exam, if they're given a choice, which exam kind of is better suited for their situation. So a lot of things to consider, but I hope you found this helpful. And I will be making more videos soon. So